In this video, I'm going to talk about using loops with files. If you look at our example here, we're reading in 3 names and we're just displaying 3 names. So we're kind of repeating what we're doing. And it might be best in this case to use a loop that maybe reads a name, displays a name, reads another name, displays another name, etc., etc. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to just be using one variable. I'm just going to call it name. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to read a name. And then I'm going to display it to, I'm going to see out, sorry, the name. And I'm going to put this code in a loop. Now, I'm going to take my cout statement here and I'm going to move it prior to the loop because I really only want it to happen once. So I'm going to output this. Now, I'm just going to use a for loop initially. That's not going to be the best type of loop, but I'll talk about that. So let's say there's 3 names, so I could set up a for loop that just goes through 3 times and it reads a name and it displays a name. And oops, I'm going to run this. And there we go. So now I have it in a loop. It's a little bit more efficient. But what if I go to my input file and I put a couple more names? And I'm going to save it. Right? I'm just clicking on the save icon. I don't think you can see what I'm doing. It's right up above. All right. And now I run this again. Well, it only has the 3 names because the loop goes through 3 times. Well, I guess I could change this to 5 and then I'll get all of them. But a lot of times we don't know how many things are in a file. We just want to read in until we hit the end of file marker, right? So here we talked about the end of file marker being here. And there's a couple ways you can do it. I'm going to show you one way and then I'll show you how the textbook does it, which I'm not a huge fan of, but we'll talk about that. So it's not really a for loop. If you think about it, it's a while loop. We want to read until we reach the end of file. And so we can say this, while. Now here's how we check for the end of file. Input file.eof. EOF is a function that checks for the end of file. If it is the end of the file, this guy will be true. So this is saying, like, while true, it's going to go through the loop. Well, if we reach the end of file, we don't want it to go through the loop, so we're going to put a not in front of it. So while I'm not reached the end of file, I'm going to read a name and then display it. Now let's see what that looks like. Now it works for all the names. And if I go in here and I put more names, right? And again, I'm just going to save this to be sure. And I run it again. Oops, I got to press any key to continue. Now it works for all the names. So that's generally how we work with files, is we use loops. Now the author of the textbook, instead of using this end of file function, will actually put this first, the input statement right here. And it actually does the same thing. I just find it to be a little bit confusing because if this reads in the end of file marker, this actually will return a false and the loop will end. So I'll show you here. All right, so that works too. So either way is fine. Okay, I'm going to leave the code in like this because it matches the textbook. But I'm also going to put my way in there as well, and I'll just comment it out so you can see what I did. And again, this file is going to be posted, so you'll have both ways and you can do whatever you prefer. Now, obviously, I can't have both of these in here, so I'm just going to comment this out. Let me move this up for a second. Right here you can see, just to show you, there's two icons up here. One will comment out these selected lines and one will uncomment. So those are kind of helpful when you're doing that. All right, and then I'm going to run this. So either way is acceptable. Whichever way you choose to do it is fine.